We are here, my name is Joan Woodard. I'm your hearing examiner this evening. The purpose of this hearing is to allow me to receive evidence and testimony on the matters that are pending. I make my recommendation.
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Where'd she go?
Exactly.
You are
Right.
unmuted.
I make my recommendation only to the county commissioners. I do not make the final decision. I will be submitting my recommendation to staff within 2 weeks of this evening's hearing. The application will then be scheduled for deliberations before the county commissioners. If you wish to give testimony, I need you to fill out one of the sheets in the back. And when you come to the podium, please give your name and address for the record before you begin your testimony. First, staff will introduce the application, then we will hear from the applicant. After the applicant's testimony, we will then get into the public comment sheets. We'll hear from those of you who are in favor, those who are neutral, and then those who are opposed. The public not speaking will be read into the record. We will then give the applicant and/or their representative an opportunity for rebuttal of any testimony stated into the record from the public before we close the public hearing. After that point, we will receive no more testimony. The time limits are 30 minutes for the applicant's presentation, 3 minutes each for public testimony, and 15 minutes for the applicant's rebuttal. I would ask that you direct all of your testimony to me and not to the audience. I'll also ask that, since there are a lot of you and we have a lot of comments to get through tonight, and I want to hear every one of them, no clapping, no booing, no cheering, because it cuts into people's time and it distracts from my ability to listen carefully. So please keep that in mind. Any questions? No? Yes.
I was under the impression that clapping was okay and or cheering.
No, it's not. I get to set the rules, and my rule is no clapping, cheering, or booing.
So if we do clap or cheer, we will be removed?
If I have to reprimand you once, you will then be removed afterwards.
Just after the one reprimand? I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Okay?
I just have a comment.
Yeah?
Is presenting 15 minutes, and some other group is presenting 30 minutes. Maybe not this one, but the next one. We want, as an opposition, we want our 30 minutes. If they get 15 and 30 minutes, we want our 30 minutes. We just talk among us. We're going to put a group together. We want to be able to use our computers, graphics, everything, so we can do a proper presentation as an opposition. And I think we have the right. I talked to a few people, and I've been doing this thing for 30 years. Again, the applicant is not here. This is our right to present our case to you. We're not presenting to them. We're presenting to you. We want also, we might ask to bring the fire guy here and ask the questions. Also, we need to be able to ask the applicant the questions. So we're asking them to be here next time. Okay?
Go ahead. Ben Tarbutton with the county.
Thank you, everybody. And again, those attending the Zoom, appreciate you guys here in attendance. This is part of the public process, and this is, what we do. We allow people to speak. We want engagement from the public. And so if you are wanting to put 10 people together and they're willing to forfeit their time, they will be able to consolidate and give them 10 minutes rather than a 3-minute period. So that is an option if you have 10 people that want to consolidate their efforts there. But I think what I would like to do also is to start out by saying that we do encourage and we understand that a proposal like this does evoke emotion. I mean, it's part of who we are. We are human, and to ask that emotions be suppressed, it would make us just inhuman. So we acknowledge and expect that this is going to evoke some emotion. However, it is imperative that we are still, as a community, and I am part of this community, I trust that we are a community that respect one another. And so no matter whether or not they are from living inside or outside of this community, it is important that we still honor each other and respect one another. And so I trust that as a part of this community that we will do that. And so As we begin our proceedings tonight, please keep that in mind, that we are speaking to one another with respect. So hopefully that doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary and without expectation. So.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my name's Ann Wilder, and on what he said, now, if they put together their 30-minute presentation, which is what we did with Dalton Gardens, and we gave it in front of the planners as well as in front of the city council, will that have an effect on the county commissioners? You know, will they be able to do it at the county commissioners meeting? Is that when they would, because obviously it's too late to put it together for today.
I assume that county commissioners have a whole different
That's
set
right.
of
So,
requirements.
tonight, as you may be aware, there is a public hearing scheduled before the Board of County Commissioners, which will be a new hearing. And so any opportunity to speak again, as we are tonight, is available to the public. So that will be available next month.
And the date of that was?
September 29th.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Which month are we in now?
Yes.
And I appreciate your comments, Ben. However, we have a representative appears to be here, but we do not actually see the actual applicants here, do we? In person. The actual applicant being Mr. Engel.
Well,
and
again,
maybe
I think.
Vice President or President of AT&T and SMARTLINK.
I think what we can do is, we're asking questions right now, which this is mostly the questions were meant to be guided tonight's proceedings. So I think we're kind of getting outside of that period, and I think maybe this would be an opportunity to actually hear from staff and hear from the applicant. And then if you choose to express your comments and opinion, then there will be an opportunity for that.
Another question?
Yeah, John and Ben, so this is definitively a CUP, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Are in attendance via Zoom?
I have, let's see, 7, not counting, 11 total, but that's staff and.
Yes.
I gave you guys 3 scientific papers in the last meeting.
Yes.
Did those go to Mr. Engel, AT&T, and SmartLink?
Well, they become part of the public record, and they're in the file, and they're accessible.
Right, but did they access them?
I don't have no way of knowing.
Are they going to speak on these problems? These are public safety problems, okay?
And-
Or are they going to give us another half an hour of their business plan like last?
Well, we'll hope that we'll get true rebuttal this evening based on the testimony that's presented for them to respond to.
That was presented at the last meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Anything else in the question department? Yes.
I did not hear a response to this gentleman's question, which was, are we being allowed to present a PowerPoint of the documentation of our concerns? I did not hear a response to that.
We indicated that if there are enough of you who will give up your 3 minutes to pool, yes, you can do that.
And so if you have a PowerPoint prepared, we do have the ability to take that if you wanted to use it.
Thank you, thanks.
And that's for this today?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that was it. Next one.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
next,
For the
next.
September 29th
Yeah,
meeting.
next one.
One of the other things I'd like to say from the podium is that I do urge you all to remain for the applicant's rebuttal. In many of these hearings I conduct, people get up, they speak, and then they leave. And I think it's very important to stay, particularly when you have such strong feelings, to listen to the rebuttal. It's good for all of us, okay? All right. Yes.
Whoever wants to do the PowerPoint, they meet with me after the meeting, and I can have some for that hearing on the 29th.
Yeah. If you have a PowerPoint that you'd like for the Board of Commissioners hearing on the 29th to be ready to be queued up, see Jonathan after the meeting. Okay? All right. Then we will begin with the hearing on case number CUP 22-0004.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. Before I get into the specifics of this request, I'd like to answer a question that was raised by one of the members of the public. The question was asked whether the actual property owner had to be present, Mr. Engel. He does not have to be present. Our code does have an allowance or a provision that grants a representative of the owner, being the applicant, to represent them on their behalf. We have a notarized authorization that's been signed by Mr. Engel that grants AT&T and their associates to represent them. We have the attorney here present that will be addressing you later on tonight, as well as we have the planner on this case and the construction manager who represents AT&T as well. There's absolutely no obligation for Mr. Engel or any other property owner whose project may be before you to be physically present if they have an applicant representing them. That's the common practice through many municipalities. So I just want to make that very clear. Additionally, there's no obligation, because this is a hybrid meeting having the ability to be here physically as well as on Zoom. There's no obligation for the applicant to be here physically. They may choose to be here physically, or they may choose to be here via Zoom. So the statements that were made last time that for whatever reason, that the applicant failed to appear disqualified having the meeting, that's not correct. We did notify, we posted the property as well as have a legal notice in Coeur d'Alene Press that says this will be done via Zoom and in room 1. So there's no obligation to be here physically. The question regarding the group.
Mention just real quick, sorry to interrupt you, Vlad, that Mr. Engel has responded just via Zoom, said that he is in attendance, and just wanted us to let us know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for that information. There is a provision under Land Use and Development Code Title 8 Ordinance 493, subsection 88405, that does give the timelines for the applicant, individual speakers, as well as groups presentation. And it does state that if you have one speaker that represents 10 individuals who are in attendance, that they could have up to 15 minutes to make their presentation. Now, in some cases in the past, the hearing examiner or the board do have the discretion to allow for more time. So I want to be clear that it will be up to you or the Board of County Commissioners on September 29th to grant additional time if they deem it necessary. With that said, I will get into the specifics of this request. I realize that this presentation was already made on August 4th of this year. However, to be fair to any of the individuals who are present tonight who were not present on August 4th, with your permission, I'd like to restate the request.
Yes, please.
And if you want, I can do a brief presentation or I can get into the details. It's up to you, however much information you want me to present.
I think your typical presentation is appropriate.
So as everyone knows, this is a request for a wireless communication facility, specifically a cell tower by Mr. Engel and AT&T. The subject property is located east of I-90 on Potlatch Hill. It is a 7.13 acre parcel of land that is heavily vegetated. It does have significant slopes on site and the applicant is proposing to locate the structure on the western portion of the property in close proximity to the existing public road, Potlatch Hill Road. The current zoning is agricultural suburban, and the comp plan designation is border. As you can see, this is an island of Kootenai County land. It is surrounded by, on at least two sides, by City of Coeur d'Alene parcels. These parcels, being that they are within Kootenai County jurisdictional boundaries, they are obligated to comply with the regulations that are currently in effect by Kootenai County. I know that at the last hearing, there was testimony with some concerns and perhaps confusion by the public with respect to which agency or which jurisdiction should be reviewing this matter, whether it's the City of Coeur d'Alene or it should be Kootenai County. I want to be very clear that while this is in close proximity and abuts City of Coeur d'Alene on the east side of this parcel, it has to go through county review because the property is currently in the unincorporated area of Kootenai County. So I want to make that very clear. The City of Coeur d'Alene area of city impact, this property is located within the City of Coeur d'Alene area of city impact, requires that we solicit comments from the City of Coeur d'Alene city engineer. We did receive an approval from Mr. Bosley, who is the city engineer, who had no comments but to say that he approves of this request because for whatever reason they have no interest or they have no comment to provide at this time. Staff also looked at the current zoning. The zoning directly to the east is R3 PUD and it's R1, one parcel north of the subject property. As you can see, this is the conceptual site plan that the applicant has prepared. The subject cell tower will be located within a fenced area, which will be approximately 70 by 70 feet. The main access will be provided via a single driveway off of Potlatch Hill Road. As I recall, there were quite a few comments that were raised with regards to the physical features of the property and the feasibility of constructing this specific facility. The concerns were raised with regards to slope and the ability to do the cut and fills and grade the property in order to accommodate the subject tower. Some of the concerns were raised with respect to the timing and the protocol for when those documents that specifically address the site disturbance, the building permit aspects of this tower, as well as the geotechnical analysis. Now, this property was recently subdivided, and we do have on file a geotechnical report that addresses the ability to construct a residential structure. However, being that this is not a residential structure, a more comprehensive geotechnical report will be required at the time of building permit application. I want to make it very clear that there's absolutely no obligation in terms of the code requirements that stipulates that the specific technical aspects of site disturbance, as well as geotechnical review and or building plans, construction plans, blueprints, whatever you want to call them, are required to be submitted as part of a complete and sufficient application at the time of a conditional use permit for land use review. We are here tonight to review the land use aspect of this request that addresses zoning, comp plan, compatibility, and other aspects and components of a conditional use process. We have those requirements listed in in chapter 8 of our code. If any members of the public have any questions, they are welcome to contact me either via email or phone to discuss those requirements. But I know there was a lot of concern, and while I do acknowledge those concerns, I want to be very clear that some of the technical aspects are not required at this time. As many of you know, the tower will be 150 feet tall, and that's the maximum allowance under our current code. The applicant is requesting to place a 5-foot tall lightning rod on top of the tower, and we concluded that this is an appurtenance to the main facility, therefore it doesn't count against the 150-foot height of the tower. The tower will provide the latest 5G and 4G LTE technology. The code requires that the applicant provide evidence that there is deficient coverage in the area and how this proposed facility would make those accommodations to provide better coverage. This is the current RFQ map, radio frequency map of the existing coverage, and this is the proposed coverage. I know there were a lot of questions about the technical aspects of coverage and radio frequency. I will let the attorney as well as their design planner and construction manager address those questions when it comes to them to make that case. I know there's requirements to address whether there are any towers within a 2-mile radius and whether they have looked at other facilities that they could co-locate on, a minimum of 4, which they have also presented that evidence. Now, I know there were questions at the first hearing. I'd like to have the applicant address those questions either when they present their case or on rebuttal. The applicant also submitted a number of photo simulations from various angles in certain locations that were also heavily disputed by the applicant, and I know that, or excuse me, by the opposition. I know the applicant has created a number of photo simulations after the fact, and they will be presenting them after I'm done. So they will have their presentation and they will be showing those photo simulations. But there were a number of them that were taken that at least 2 of them do show the cell tower protruding above the tree canopy, and at least a couple, or at least one, that does not, from Highway 90, from Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive. We did solicit comments from various agencies with jurisdiction, and I know there were questions about the improvements to Potlatch Hill Road and the geometry likely not being feasible for construction equipment and so on. We don't have any evidence from the agency that would, in fact, address that or state that that's an issue at this time. The Kootenai County Fire Code has access and address requirements. Division of Aeronautics basically said that the location of the tower does not pose a hazard. The Kootenai County Airport had agreed with the tow air FAA determination that this is the location does not present any significant impact and does not pose any risk. Kootenai County Building Division requires, of course, a building permit. Staff will also require a site disturbance permit if the CUP is approved. Panhandle Health had no comment because there's no restroom facilities being proposed. And as I stated previously, Coeur d'Alene, City of Coeur d'Alene approved the request with no further comment. During the first public hearing before you that was held on August 4th, we received a total of 31 comments. Some of the concerns were raised with regard to aesthetics, obstruction of views, potential increase in fire risk, light and noise pollution, health concerns, negative impact to wildlife, limited escape routes, parcel ownership, existing Potlatch Hill Road conditions, increase in vehicular traffic, trespass, and vandals at the site. I want to explain for those folks that were not present at the first hearing the reason why we're having a second hearing. This is a very unique situation. We typically do not have a public hearing or 2 public hearings in front of the hearing examiner. However, due to a notification error, and we are required to notify folks around the subject property with the perimeter of, around the perimeter of the subject property of 500 feet on parcels that are 5 acres or greater. Due to the error in notification, we concluded that we will conduct the first hearing as well as notice for the second hearing to give a full opportunity and do the correct notification. Simultaneous with that, being that this is heavily opposed and that there are federal regulations in terms of shot clock for the decision to be made at local level, we also double notice for the board hearing that will be upcoming on September 29th as well. During the second public comment period for tonight's hearing, we received a 1 comment in support, 1 comment that was neutral, and 21 comments in opposition. The concerns were very identical to those that were raised at the first hearing. I know that there were a number of videos that were also submitted as part of the record by one of the individuals, basically stating or showing in the video that there is great coverage in different locations around the subject site. I have looked at them. You may want to state into the record if you have, or if you have not. I'll leave that to you. Staff's analysis from the first hearing hasn't changed. We believe that the concerns raised with regard to compatibility and landscaping will be addressed with the existing vegetation on site, as well as having the tower being paint neutral colors. Staff concurs with the analysis of the fire district. While the concerns raised by the public are very real and valid, they have existed on Potlatch Hill for many years, and some are terrain and aspect related, which will never change. I have driven out to the property on numerous occasions, and I agree with that statement by the fire marshal. There were a number of concerns raised by the public with regard to health and safety, or health concerns. I acknowledge those concerns, but based on the Telecommunications Act of 1996, local jurisdictions cannot deny an application on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with FCC regulations. So if there's any evidence in the record with regard to health concerns, we can't really do anything with it. Staff also confirmed that Mr. Engel is the owner of the property, and I have stated this on the record before. He had subdivided the property, I believe in 2019. At the time, we did receive a title report that he was the sole owner, and that that was also reviewed by our assessor's office that confirmed that to be the case. He also signed the Mylars that were recorded with the recorder's office. There is no indication that that property has exchanged hands or anyone else has interest in it that we know of or is part of the public record. So if the public wants to dispute that, they're welcome to do that, but without any additional evidence, we can't put that into question. And based on the reasons that I have stated on record at the first hearing and tonight, we have no, we cannot recommend denial of the request because the applicant has met all the required findings and conclusions of law pursuant to Land Use and Development Code that we currently have in effect. I stand for any questions that you have at this time.
I don't have any of you right now, Vlad. Thank you. Now we'll hear from the applicant.
Wow. Good evening, Examiner Woodard, staff, and members of the public. My name is Kimberly Allen. I'm with the Wireless Policy Group. I am here representing AT&T. On the Zoom call, we also have Deborah Griffin from SMARTLINK, who was the site acquisition consultant for this particular site. She is here to answer questions, as well as Randy Morrison, who is AT&T's construction manager. Last time the examiner had some questions about how the site would be constructed, and so Mr. Morrison will stand for questions on that. At the onset, I would ask to move our PowerPoint and one additional exhibit into the record. I have paper copies, but also electronic copies available.
That'll be ATE 2001 and ATE 2002.
Thank you.
Yes, the presentation is one, and then the other exhibit is a disclaimer that goes on with the online AT&T coverage maps that was not submitted by members of the public when they submitted screenshots of those maps. So we want to complete the record on that. Is it this one? Nope. Okay, originally we did a visual study as part of our application, looked at 4 different locations here. And so these are the photo simulations from those locations. View 1 is looking south from 201 Bruce Drive. View 2 is looking southeast on Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive and East Sherman Avenue. View number 3 is looking north from Terrace Condos. There the tower is not visible. And then the 4th view was from looking north on East Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive. And again, tower not visible. Deborah Griffith from SmartLink did some additional photo sims, chose some additional locations based on feedback that we received from members of the public during the earlier hearing last month. And so we have additional locations that were chosen, and we've broken them into 2 groups. There are some locations where the tower is visible, and we'll show those, and then there are some where the tower is not visible. This slide shows the map of the views 1 through 4. These are new slides showing the tower. And then Deborah, can you speak to these locations that you chose? Maybe not.
Can you hear me now? I think I was muted.
Yes.
I think there's a glitch on the connection. So this is the expanded view number 1. This is looking west from East Sky Harbor Drive. It is taken from a residential driveway. The gentleman who conducts our balloon test and the photo sims, he said that at this location that you can see in highlighted with the box number 1 is the only location where you could see the balloon from east of the tower. So he actually had to go right onto the driveway to take the shot. If you switch to the next slide. Sorry, I'm trying to look at my screen and the screen that's up on your side. Slide 9 shows new view number 2, and this is looking east from Coeur d'Alene Resort, the golf course clubhouse specifically. And as you can see, the tower is slightly visible over the tree canopies. Slide 10 shows the new view 3, which is looking south from East Vernon Hill Road, which is north of the tower. And as you can see, it does protrude above the tree canopy. Slide 11. This is new view 4, looking south from Fernand Boat Launch. And as you can see in this view, the tower also extends above the tree canopy slightly. Slide number 12. These are new views 1 through 7 that show the tower not visible, and we chose to take these locations to the east of the tower at the base of the hill and then extending further east into the Armstrong Park neighborhood. And these locations were chosen based off of feedback from the previous hearing, since the majority of the residents that came out to that hearing were from that residential subdivision. Slide 13, I believe that's what you're on, shows new view 1, and this is looking west from 3753 East Sky Harbor Drive. The balloon is always, just as a note, the balloon is always going to be shown or not shown in the middle of the picture. So we had the gentleman conducting the sim show where the tower would be in relation to the shot, since you can't see the balloon or the tower. So as you see here, it is noted that the tower is not seen from this location, and it has an arrow where the tower is going to be located. The next slide, which you are on, is the new view number 2, which is looking west from 3359 East Sky Harbor Drive. And as you can see, it shows the location where the tower is located and that it is not visible. The next slide. This is new view number 3, looking west from 3300 East Sky Harbor Drive. As you can see, the tower is not visible. And this is from the clubhouse. I believe it's considered a clubhouse there, if I remember correctly. The next slide, which is what you are on, is the new view number 4, looking southwest from 3224 East Sky Harbor Drive. As you can see, the tower is not seen over the tree canopy. Slide 17 is new view number 5, looking west from Rutledge Circle. And as you can see, the tower is not visible from that location above the trees. Slide 18 is new view number 6, looking southwest from 964 North Armstrong Drive. And again, the tower is not visible. And slide 19 is new view number, new view number 7, looking southwest from 802 North Armstrong Drive. And the tower is not visible. I just want to speak to on the next slide, if you could go there, slide 20. This is a letter, just a brief letter describing from our gentleman that conducts the balloon test, just describing how he conducts the balloon test. So I was just going to read that so everybody knows that this is actually a professional company that produces these sims. He flies a red foot diameter helium balloon is up in the sky, and it is prescribed at the height above ground level. So in this case, he flew the balloon at 150 feet. The balloon is secured with a 47-pound helium tank, so it's secured in place. The height of the balloon is checked with a Nikon laser rangefinder, and this number that shows up on the rangefinder corresponds to the height and location of the proposed tower. The photos are taken from different vantage points, as you saw on the maps that were shown previously, to determine the visibility of the proposed tower. And as you see, the photo sims are then produced using those photos that were taken. The before shots show the as-is view from the camera, and when the balloon is inflated, the 4-foot balloon is a known size and is utilized for determining the size of the 8-foot antennas for placement of the proposed tower. So the tower that you are seeing in the photo simulations is using the size of the balloon, a 4-foot diameter balloon, and he's able to scale it so it actually scales. He's actually able to produce a sim that is proportionate to an 8-foot antennas on the tower. So you're actually getting a pretty true depiction of how the tower will look when it's installed on the property. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kim, unless you have any questions for me at this time.
Well,
No.
thank you. One thing I also would point out is that this particular company has been doing photo simulations and balloon testing for wireless telecommunications since 1998. So they've been at this for a very long time and are very experienced, which is why they were selected. Now, one of the other concerns that we heard a lot about at the previous hearing was the coverage and the need for the site. And so looking through some of the materials that we presented previously, AT&T's RF engineer identifies a search ring, that's the box, the red box, and then the proposed wireless facility needs to be located within the box, the search ring, to provide the service that will be most effective in the larger targeted service area. And typically they try to locate it, the WCF, near the center of the search ring to establish a dominant signal there. This is, I think, this map was shown by staff in their presentation. This is the existing 4G LTE coverage. I want to take a moment to clear something up. I know that some of the opposition material that came in during the comment period, the written material, incorrectly stated that the only coverage that a company such as AT&T can pursue in seeking to fill a gap in coverage is voice coverage outside. And that's simply not the case. There was a case cited Mozilla by that particular individual, which talked about a test that the First Circuit had applied. We are in the Ninth Circuit, and in 2018, the FCC issued an order that specifically rejected the significant gap least intrusive means test for wireless facilities, and said that it is a legitimate aim to seek to fill, to add new services such as 5G and FirstNet, which this site will, to improve existing service, and also to fill a gap in coverage. And I'm happy to submit the citations for this particular part of my my discussion in writing to assist the hearing examiner. That decision by the FCC was appealed by a number of municipalities to federal court. It was then consolidated in the Ninth Circuit for hearing. And the Ninth Circuit, while overturning two aspects of the order that are not germane to these facilities, they did uphold the FCC's rejection of the least intrusive means significant gap test, and did affirm the FCC's holding that it was a legitimate coverage objective to be able to add capacity, which this site does. It's offloading another site to the northwest, to add new services, and to improve existing coverage, which this one will, in addition to adding brand new service, 4G, which you'll see in some of the later slides. So this will provide, it's 150-foot tip height. That's important for a number of reasons. One, that the 150-foot tip height is also that height to be able to accommodate the co-locators that are designed into this tower. It's designed to accommodate 4 different carriers, and you need to have space for their antennas and a separation between each carrier's antennas to avoid interference. And so the 150-foot height is the least that is required to be able to meet AT&T's objectives for service here, as well as to accommodate the co-locators that are required to be offered here as a result of this tower. And as you see, the new facility will provide coverage and enhanced capacity largely around the residential area in Coeur d'Alene to the west of I-90 and along I-90 to the southeast in the expanded yellow coverage. So under the code, we look at a few different radiuses. One, if you're going to propose a tower that's taller than 60 feet, which this is, we need to look to see if we can achieve a 2-mile radius separation between towers. Are there any towers within 2 miles? And then also one of the application requirements is an alternative site analysis for existing sites within a 4-mile radius. So AT&T conducted both of those, and we. I know that some of the opposition has talked about that there are 55 towers in this area. A lot of the towers that show up in these searches either were never built, or they're sometimes radio towers, or they might be a rooftop. And so AT&T, in doing their alternative analysis, drilled down and eliminated those right away. So this is the 4-mile radius showing unregistered towers, and as you can see, there are a number of places where we went and just found that there was no tower ever built there. They registered it or received an approval, but just never went forward with it. And so this is the alternative candidate analysis. We ended up with 12 alternative candidates. We did a diligent and aggressive search for another location, because in the end, it's far less expensive to co-locate on an existing facility than it is to build a new one. And so that's always the first choice for AT&T. So we went through, and I apologize for the numbering, it's a little skewed here, but we went through these 12 alternatives and looked at the ones within 2 miles, that would be number 1, and found that AT&T is already on that tower. So we cannot go and put new equipment on there. That tower is already purposed for AT&T serving a particular range of coverage. And then we looked at number 2 is an existing 60-foot monopole tower, and the antenna tip height at 60 feet, that's the only one that's available. That's 2.23 miles northwest of our site, and the 60-foot height limit just does not deliver anywhere near the coverage and capacity that's planned for this site. And I think we have more specific numbers later on. I looked again at another tower located 2.66 miles northwest. AT&T is already located on that tower. And then we also looked at one 2.88 miles northwest with an available tip height of 70 feet. When the tower owners lease out space, they have existing tenants that are on the tower that need the height that they're at to be able to continue to function. And so the available spaces kind of dwindle and are less effective based on the number of tenants that are on an existing tower. So we did inquire as to which spaces were available. that one was only 70 feet. Again, with an existing 90-foot monopole tower located 3.39 miles north, we're already on the tower, so that was not a candidate. There was another one, a 90-foot pole, 3.67 miles, had a tip height of 70 feet, again, too low to be able to clear the trees and to provide the coverage and capacity that's sought here. Some of the, other alternative here at the 155-foot tower, 3.93 miles southeast, AT&T was already located on the tower. And then there was another one half a mile away, but the available tip height was 95 feet. So that would not work for the coverage objectives. And then on the one that was located 2.2 miles north, AT&T is already on that existing 68-foot tower. And then we also had one located 2.21 miles north. Oh, another tower, a 50-foot tower, which was adjacent to alternative location number 10. And co-location on this pole, because they're adjacent to each other, would cause interference. So we could not put our antennas on that. And then an existing 100-foot, 50-foot tower located 4 miles away, AT&T was already located on that tower. And they're shown there on the map. So of the ones that we needed to look at that were potential, the ones that AT&T had not ruled out because they were already there or because they were just too far away, looked at alternative site 2, which is an existing 60-foot tower, but the height was the problem. We received only 14.75% of the targeted service area, and it was also too close to AT&T's existing wireless facility, as you can see, which would cause potential interference and degrade the existing signal quality there. And then also it was outside the search ring. It's geographically too distant from there to meet the service objectives within the targeted service area. And the location was also too far to offload the existing AT&T tower, which is one of the goals for this new site. Alternative site number 4 was a 70-foot height. We achieved only 10.51% of the targeted service area versus 100% with the 150-foot tower we're proposing. This was too close to the existing WCF, again, the interference and signal degradation problem, and then also it was well outside the search ring. Alternative site 6 was a 90-foot tower. We could only achieve 12.54% coverage of the targeted service area, and it shared the same problems as the other ones in terms of being outside of the search ring significantly, and but also too close to the existing wireless facility that we have that would cause interference and signal issues. And then alternative site number 8 was an existing 134-foot tower. Proposed coverage. The available tip height here for us was only 98 feet. That was it. The total height of the tower is 134, but the only spot available was at 98 feet. There was someone else at the top. And at 98 feet, we could achieve only 52.5% of the targeted service area. Again, geographically very distant from the search ring. And then the 98-foot tip height, which we call a rad center, that's the middle of the antennas, is too low to get over the tree line and the terrain at that location. Also, we could not achieve any improvement to Highway I-90 to the southeast with this particular site. And then number 9 is an existing 125-foot tower. Again, the only available position on that tower is a 95-foot tip height. We could achieve 52.3% of the targeted service area. And again, it shared the same problems as the previous sites, that it was just too far and too outside the search ring to meet the objectives for this particular site. And then finally, I did want to note that this particular site will be adding new service for Firstnet. Firstnet is a federally mandated network that AT&T is building out under the Firstnet Authority, which is a component of the Department of Commerce. They have a 25-year contract that's been awarded solely to AT&T. And what they're doing is getting a nationwide interoperable broadband network where public safety will have priority and preemption in the event of a disaster or an emergency. So all those frequencies, both the commercial ones and the dedicated ones, band 14 is a dedicated frequency for public safety, will automatically shift over in the event of an emergency and be available for first responders. And AT&T is building this out in all 50 states, including Idaho. But these are some of the components of FirstNet, some of the benefits of it to the community and to the nation. EMS uses it to upload big data files for medical. Fire can get communications going quickly. Same with police. And we're also offering it to emergency centers. The PSAPs go and send out, when you call in to 911, it sends that out to dispatch. So they also rely on wireless as well. So in terms of citizen concerns, we heard what was being said. With respect to fire hazard from lightning, we are proposing a grounding system with a lightning rod that is an industry standard. It's in the plans now that are going to be submitted as construction drawings. And then an earth ground system will be installed around the entire lease area. And the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue approved this proposal without any additional conditions. In terms of visual impact, this has been designed as a lattice tower for structural reasons to withstand snow, wind, and to accommodate co-location of additional carriers as required by the county code. Lattice towers are not a solid mass like a monopole, and you kind of see through the components of it, and can be considered less visually intrusive than a monopole, especially at 150 feet. We're proposing the tower be galvanized steel with an anti-glare finish, which we will paint any color the county would like to further camouflage the visual impacts of the tower. We have no lighting required by the FAA or the state of Idaho, nor are we proposing any lighting on the tower. And then AT&T aims to retain as much existing mature vegetation as possible, which should assist in the screening of the majority of the tower. There's a lot of tall trees and things like that that will help mitigate those impacts. With respect to the road, I think as I said in my opening remarks, there's a process that the county has laid out whereby an applicant seeks zoning approval first with the planning department, and the focus is on aesthetics and compatibility. And then once that approval is obtained, then the applicant submits a building permit with detailed engineering, with scientific reports, and that information goes to a whole different part of the county, a whole different group with technical expertise, many of them engineers, to review the applicability of the building and safety codes and to make sure that the facility is built to meet all of the county standards as well as national standards. But that's the process that the county has laid out as how you proceed through that. And AT&T is preparing all of those documents as we speak. They are looking at a very preliminary grading plan. They're also developing a road approach. Geotech reports, updated and more detailed, are being prepared. But all of that will go in with the building permit application, should the application here be approved. And as I think Mr. Finkel said, the county is going to require a site disturbance plan to be submitted with the building permit. We also want to emphasize that the site won't generate regular vehicular traffic. Typically one pickup truck-sized vehicle per month for regular maintenance is the traffic impact for this site once it's constructed. And in terms of constructing it, we understand that there's probably going to be some work that we need to do on the road. There's not been specific direction yet from the Eastside Highway District. However, Randy Morrison is our construction engineer or construction manager, and I think that Randy can speak to what impacts, if any, this road and the construction might have on the surrounding neighbors.
Yes. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So this is more of a typical build for us in our new site build program that we do. The road going into this particular location is a little bit out of scope for us because there is some steepness going in. We will build per the approved plan, subject to the jurisdiction and what they recommend for us to do. I don't foresee any real issues in regards to that. I have been to this location during the build process. It's going to be at least a 2-month build process, depending on material availability. Excuse me, and weather. I'm not sure exactly when we're going to build. I would say this would be a snow site, so we would be building it as early in the spring, as soon as the snow melt goes away, as approved by the jurisdiction as well. But the site itself is a, as I stated, it's a fairly typical build for us, a 2-month process to build, and we will build per the approved building permit that we receive, and I hope that answers your question, Kim.
Thank you, Andy. And then just finally, in terms of the citizen complaint concerns, we did hear the trepidation about RF emissions, and we do emphasize that the FCC has preempted local regulation of FCC compliant sites based on RF exposure. We do have in the record evidence that this will be an RF compliant site. We do intend to meet all the federal emissions limits, and the site has been engineered to do that. And then also I know there's been a lot of press about millimeter wave 5G and a lot of fear around that. The 5G that's being deployed here is not that. It's low band 5G frequencies that are pretty old and have been around for quite a while, used as TV frequencies previously, and are being used by AT&T today to deploy 5G service in residential, suburban, and rural communities. And this is the same spectrum used for 3G and 4G today. So we are not intending to deploy any millimeter wave frequencies at this location, nor could the examiner consider that based on the federal preemption. And with that, I think I have 50 seconds, so I thank you for your attention and time. I will be back for rebuttal to speak to any new concerns that the folks in the audience have. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
How many of the towers that you identified, I think there were 12 or something like that, how many of those does AT&T own?
I don't know. I'm going to ask Deborah Griffin if she knows.
Fortunately, I do not have that answer. We just know, when I reached out to our RF engineers to rule out those towers, or to see if they were actually viable, I should say, they just said that AT&T was already located on the tower. I never asked them the question if AT&T owns the tower.
So would it be possible, if AT&T does own some of those towers that are shorter, that they could replace them with a taller tower and accomplish what's needed?
It could be possible. I would have to consult with the RF engineers to see how the existing deployment that's on there might interact or interfere with the new antennas that are being proposed for there. I'm not sure that that's compatible or practical under the code.
When, and we might want to go back to a visual that shows this. I was trying to look in the case file to understand how you chose the search ring that you did based on where you're trying to add service. And it looks to me, as a complete neophyte, that, and in your text, you indicate that you're trying to get serviced east of I-90, which is the lake, right?
Well, and the other communities that surround there, yes.
Why wouldn't you have put that search ring a little further south and accomplish a whole lot more with it?
Well, and I think that providing service to I-90 is not the only objective for this site. It's also offloading the existing AT&T site, which is to the northwest of the service area. So that site is overburdened right now. It has too many users on it, and it's not operating effectively. And so the new site, they placed the search ring kind of in the middle here of all of the components that they want to achieve here. One is to relieve the existing site, which is overburdened. The other is to add coverage and capacity. One of the objectives is to add service along to the east of I-90, but they also wanted to achieve the objectives that they had for the northern site and then the northeast as well. So there are many different goals that we hope to accomplish with just the one site.
Because it seems that with that very small search ring, you've limited your options for available properties that might accommodate a 150-foot tower.
And previously, with previous technologies, when we started back in the day, it was common, and you probably saw that here in Coeur d'Alene too, to put the big giant towers up on the hill, and they would broadcast coverage far and wide for making phone calls, and that worked. In the industry, we called those the boomer sites because they were up on the top, and they would boom the signal out with very little particularity. With the advent of data use as a primary driver for network use, that requires something a little bit more fine-tuned, and it requires that the tower be closer to the users. And so the search rings have gotten smaller as the objectives has changed from adding capacity and adding additional facilities to deliver data.
Okay, that's all right now. Thank you.
Can I add something? This is Debbie Griffin with SmartLink.
No.
Am I able to add anything?
You can add when we're in rebuttal. How about that?
Okay, okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. It appears that we have no one wishing to speak who is in favor.
Sorry.
And no one wishing to speak who is neutral, which means we will dive into those who are opposed. And I apologize in advance for mangling your names. Some of it's my lack of ability to decipher handwriting, and some of it's just my lack of ability to know how to pronounce a name. So, Dean Ganger is opposed and wishes to speak. And I know I made a mess of that.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. Actually very close. It's Ginger, like singer. My name is Dean Ginger. I live at 4230 East Potlatch Hill Road, which is just across the street from the proposed location of the tower and the property that the tower exists on. I've been a 5G engineer since 4G was in diapers, and before that 4G and 3G and 2G. However, my concerns today are to address aspects with respect to the suitability of Potlatch Hill Road to support this application. I know that some of those issues are part of the building permit application, but I do believe that in approving, if the county were to approve this application, they can attach stipulations to impact how the application is deployed. Potlatch Hill Road, which intersects Sky Harbor Drive, there is a paved road, and Potlatch Hill, Sky Harbor Drive continues straight on a paved road. Potlatch Hill curves around a 170-degree turn up a slope into a very narrow gravel road. Some would say unimproved gravel road, but East Side might dispute that characterization. This road provides the only means of ingress and egress for the residents on that section of the road. Passing is quite difficult because the road is so narrow. And there are a couple of turnouts to allow people to juggle their vehicles if they have larger vehicles to pass. I think I submitted some photos that you may have seen that show the difficulty of navigating that section of the road. There are two turns that are over 170 degrees that would be required to navigate for construction traffic. And both of those also involve not only a sharp turn, but a sharp turn and a sharp grade. So they're really not suitable for large, long wheelbase traffic to traverse. And my concern is that the safety of residents accessing their property is going to be compromised unless that road is improved. The road will also experience additional wear and tear and damage as a result of the large vehicle construction process. And it's been quite difficult because we are a small section of road to get East Side Highway attention to fix things up there. There's a lot of potholes, ice, snow, we get mud, dust, all kinds of fun things. Any excavation that may have to be done to provision this site with utilities such as fiber optics or electrical connections are going to increasingly make that access more difficult for the residents and degrade their safety. So I would ask the county, if they do approve this application, that they include a stipulation that the road needs to be improved to ensure that it is suitable for the application that is being proposed. Thank you.
Thanks. Just a clarification, not for you specifically. We have a timer. When it makes that funny noise, that means what? You're done. So everybody else, we're going to be following that timer, okay?
I guess there is one neutral within this somewhere, but I'm not sure where.
Okay. Lauren Metcalf, opposed and wishes to speak.
Hi. I'm Lorene Metcalf, resident at, homeowner at 962 North Armstrong Drive. I understand that the law protects AT&T from liability, but as a homeowner whose health was impacted by cell towers, I just wanted to share my sentiments. I selected Armstrong Park community believing that it would provide peace and safety. And I truly believe that if this tower is erected, I'll receive neither. In 2012, I lived in Orange County in San Clemente. I was a caregiver for my husband who was fighting cancer at the time. And in that time, we enlisted the help of top cancer clinics in the country and even outside of the country. And we learned very, very well about the concerns of those clinics, and one of them was 5G. And they taught about the danger of these cell towers for seniors, for children, for animals. They taught that the frequencies contributed to the cancer. And so this is what we learned at these top-notch cancer clinics. In 2012, I became bedridden, and I hired a environmental pollution inspector to examine my home to find out why I was so ill. I thought that maybe it was an issue of mold. And they examined the home and they found that the ranges within the home were very, very toxic. I ended up spending about $20,000 in medical care and insulation of the home against the external radio waves. Just like the way I'm situated here, it just seemed like the waves came down from the top. So, and it came within a radius, and I was within that radius. I noticed that the representative for AT&T covered aesthetics of the cell tower, but what I believe the real danger, or I believe that the real danger is unseen. And I think of the lead shield that's placed on people's chests when they have x-rays. It's there for a reason, because there's radioactivity that is dangerous to us. And so that's my primary concern. And not only do I feel that my home is going to be devalued, but besides that, I actually own it's probably a $6,000 or $7,000 EMF.
That was your
protection.
timer.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, actually, that was the last part.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Smart, opposed, wishes to speak.
I'm Kevin Smart with Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office has a brief statement. Public safety and crime prevention is our first priority. There are resources that will reveal multiple incidents of tower vandalism, including fires set by both homeless encampments and unsupervised towers, as well as fires set merely for the purpose of destruction. This leads to concerns of security of the area and potential increased fire dangers. There are concerns with the current conditions of the roadway configurations that have been expressed already. Those same concerns for traffic flow and traffic concerns also greatly impacts the Sheriff's Office response times. The area of Potlatch Hill over the years has had experiences with homeless encampments in which the area can be related to criminal activity, to include drug use and thefts within the area. Towers of this nature have been known to attract issues of juvenile parties, bonfires, and vandalism. For these reasons, as it relates to public safety, the Sheriff's Office has security and severe concerns for this project moving forward.
Thank you. Ann Wilder, opposed, wishes to speak.
Hello, my name is Ann Wilder, and I live at 349 Primrose Lane in Priest River, Idaho. The decisions made by Kootenai County also affect those of us who live in other rural areas of other counties. I looked at the map submitted by AT&T regarding the proposed wireless telecommunication facility and saw that there was no gap in coverage in the proposed area. It says, proving that there is no need for this microwave emitting telecommunication tower. According to Mozilla et al. Versus FCC, case 18 versus 1051, which happened after the case that Ms. Allen quoted, this was afterwards, the exemption clause in the 1996 Telecommunication Act refers only to the wireless phone service, not internet. That is because in the ruling for this case, the FCC gave up their control over the internet, leaving it to local municipalities to choose how to provide internet for their constituents. This ruling also means that the wireless communication providers must prove need in order to require municipalities to approve additional wireless facilities. And they did talk about need for certain services, but they weren't specific what those were. Since the federal government has a mandate for municipalities that states, in all circumstances, all licensed radio shall use the minimum amount of power necessary to carry out the communication desired, which would be phone services, because FCC doesn't determine over internet, that's local determination, internet, and you can use wired. then this is 47 U.S. Code, Title 324, approving an unnecessary wireless communication facility which requires a huge amount of power to operate would be a violation of U.S. Code. It would also be a foolish move by the county with the cost of energy rising as it has since February 2021, especially since the majority of the residents in the coverage area do not want it. I would recommend wired to the premises that uses less energy. I urge the county to reject this petition for this SmartLink tower. Thank you.
Thank you. Reed Harlocker, opposed, wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. I am, like earlier gentleman, I'm an RF engineer. I've been in the business for 37 years, and I specialize in public safety.
Address, please.
Pardon me?
Your address for the record.
Oh, I'm so sorry. 5535 East Majestic in Rapids. I'm not going to beat the dead horse with the other issues that people have done about security and so forth, but I just want to make a couple of points. With respect to the grounding of the site, I don't think that the applicant has addressed how they intend to ground the site very well. You have a heavy presence of bedrock there. It's going to require additional excavation. Unless they are planning to use electrolytic ground rods in the area, which could damage water quality, I would urge the county to take a deep dive into how they intend to ground the site. A lightning protection system is not a grounding system. The grounding system surrounds the tower and the facility. It has to be at least 30 inches below grade. We know that the topsoil is about 4 inches there. I walked the site. I checked it out. With respect to the long-term evolution of this site, it's a 7-acre parcel. What else is going to be put up there? There's plenty of room for multiple cabinets, additional buildings, and yes, additional towers. That's a very large facility. Are we looking to have another Mica Peak right in downtown Coeur d'Alene with multiple cell towers, multiple buildings? That's not what the city of Coeur d'Alene wants. You don't want to be looking at a tower from the lake. They didn't take any pictures from the lake. So that's basically what I wanted to say. I could go on about FirstNet, but I don't even want to beat that dog. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Wickham, neutral. Sorry, there was a neutral. It got buried and wishes to speak.
I don't know where to start. 3 minutes isn't enough time, but give you a little bit about my background. I'm a recovering lawyer. I worked as a prosecutor.
Address, please, for the record.
Oh, pardon
Your
me,
address, please.
3475 East Falcon Ridge Court. I'm also the president of Falcon Ridge HOA. I'd like to mention it'd be very simple for any of these people to contact the presidents of the nearby HOAs so our whole community could have found out about this. I think what I find most disturbing about this is the inaccuracy of some of the things I've been hearing sitting here. On August 16th, there was a historic win by the Children's Defense Fund in a case against safety guidelines for 5G wireless. Much of Europe is disallowing 5G wireless towers near schools. There's a reason for this. The primary reason is that RF compliance guidelines that you use data based on tissue samples, but does not even test the electromagnetic factors of the wave. The bottom line is here, we don't know what we don't know. And when I began researching this as a neutral party, I was horrified. I wasn't horrified by YouTube or TED Talks or Twitter. I was horrified by the science that is out there. And it is emphatically clear. When I look at the efforts that AT&T has made to address these issues, for example, the cell tower is 150 feet high, So you have all these signals that are up higher, and if you're below it, you're cool because you're above the signal, so we're all cool. This is not a plane. Our topography is ridges and mountains and lakes. We are going to have these signals. They're not going to be on a limited plane. They're going to be everywhere. I also agree with the previous speaker that this is the beginning of more things coming. I live on Falcon Ridge. It is not an aesthetic issue for me. I do not want the center of the wheel taking all of these electromagnetic waves to be right over my head. And for this company not even to address the potential health effects, because they have a literal way out of it, they think legally, is simply not true. We have something called the Consumer Protection Division. So I really think that needs to be established. And I'd like to mention one name. His name is Barry Trower, S-T-R-O-W-E-R, Barry Trower. He's an expert on this. He just gave an hour and 40-minute lecture on the damages of this kind of radiation. Thank you very much, and that's all I've got.
Thank you. Jason Lambert, opposed, wishes to speak.
Jason Lambert, 847 South Bailey Court. I live on the hill. Going on and on about the same things, I don't think is necessary. But I've driven, so going up to the very top, there's 3 associations on that hill. The very top has a gate and there's a roundabout. So not even accessing past that gate, but just that gate, driving down that hill is about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Any of the studies done on that hill, you can access. Any kind of fire that starts on that hill is about 3 to 5 minutes to get off that hill. And so my biggest concern is for my neighbors and my own family. And the grounding system doesn't ensure that other lightning strikes aren't going to be incited on that hill because of the draw of such a gigantic metal piece in the air. That's all I have.
Thank you. Johnny Silva, opposed, does not wish to speak. Elizabeth Grenier, opposed, does not wish to speak. Frank Grenier, opposed, does not wish to speak. Don Tripp, opposed, does not wish to speak. Tanya Osterson, opposed, does not wish to speak. Paul Anderson, opposed, does not wish to speak. Tui Hong McCain, opposed, does not wish to speak. Jerry Albrigo, opposed, does not wish to speak. Janice Richardson, opposed, may wish to speak.
I've already submitted a letter, and much of what I would say has already been said. Environmental, health, fire, so I won't take up more time.
Thank you. Jared Pearson, opposed, may wish to speak.
I'd like to speak, please. I'm Jared Pearson. I live at 959 North Rutledge Court. My property borders directly on the parcel that they proposed to build this tower. I strongly oppose the proposed plan for the 150-foot lattice tower. Joan, thank you for seeing us today and hearing the community. I would ask that you put yourself in our shoes and imagine this tower in your own backyard. I have concerns with unknown health risks. I'm not really well versed, and I haven't done a lot of research. I looked for the mainstream studies that have been done on it, and I've noticed that the World Health Organization has not concluded studies on it. So I do have the fear of the unknown health risks that may impact me and my family, my one-year-old daughter. The proposed tower, and I know the Kootenai County has to, abide by the law. This is a privately owned land, and they have to abide by the law. And with that being said, your hands are not tied behind your back. The proposed tower does violate Kootenai County Land Use and Development Code 8.5.132 .b1, that the tower is within the vicinity of other towers. And their argument is that there is limited coverage and it would improve coverage significantly. That's proposed coverage, adding some highlighting to a map. So I would question the validity of the proposed coverage. And then how do they know that it will actually cover that much more area versus what it already covers now? It does seem that there's already a lot of AT&T in the area, and that issues with available tip height on existing towers could be solved rather than adding an additional tower. So they are saying they would like to build this tower in order to relieve other burden sites. With the inevitable continued future growth of Coeur d'Alene, would they need to continue building towers indefinitely into the future within our area in order to achieve what they deem as sufficient coverage? Joan, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for hearing the community. And Mr. Engel, if you hear me, I'd happily make an offer on the property if it would be an alternative to the tower. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Nick Thorpe, opposed, may wish to speak. Sandra Hall, opposed, and it doesn't say whether you wish to speak or not.
What I have to say has already been said.
Thank you. Trent Munn, opposed, doesn't say whether you wish to speak.
No.
Okay, so those were all the people who were new to this hearing this evening. Now we're going to cover the people who were here before. I have a summary of what you said before. It's also in the record. A month ago isn't so long ago that my memory doesn't remember certain things. So I'd really like you to focus on anything new that you want to add to your testimony, okay? Is it Matola? Doesn't say whether you're in favor, neutral, or opposed, but that you wish to speak.
I want to speak, yeah.
Okay. And are you, are other people ceding their time to you?
No, I'm just going to speak 3 minutes.
Okay, all right, just checking.
Hi, thank you for taking your time. I live in 957 North Armstrong Drive, and this has been a big issue for our neighborhood. And my wife has been under huge stress because of this project already, and she is already in emotional distress. And one of the things is that everybody is doing their job, the county planners doing their job, I think Vlad doing their job. And of course the applicant lawyers, they are doing the job too. But we live in the community, and if everybody worries about our community, this tower is going to definitely impact our community, reduce our property values. It's going to cause many other problems that we've been talking about it. and the thing is that this is not like a regular project like a kennel or something that use permit requires or some hospitality center or ranch. This is a 150 feet 5G tower that the applicant is asking to build behind backyard. One of the things that the applicant presented the balloon, but if we look at your drawings, I cannot see a finished floor. So I don't know how they can measure the height of where the balloon is if there's no finished floor set in the drawings. This is your drawing set from the thing. And also, without the soils report, without the proper engineering, your contractor is really misleading with the 2-month construction. If he has anybody experience on a hillside building, they know that this won't be built in 2 months. And also, you guys don't even have a staging plan because none of the neighbors gonna let you to use their road and houses to even turn your trucks in the neighborhood. Also, I don't know how you guys got the fire approval. This is your plan. Maximum driveway for a fire thing per the code here. And none of your drawings has a 11%. Shows where does the 11% per the plans. Your plans are missing, it's misleading.
Also to Vlad, the use permit might require certain minimal application, but when you're in a hillside, and I did a lot of hillside projects, including California coastal projects, the requirement changes. You need to have a detailed plans, you need a soils report, geology report. We even talked about environmental impact report on this side, even to continue the next level of this project. The drawings are misleading. I don't think it's enough to even present the project. That's why their timeline is wrong, heights are not correct, and there's a lot of stuff. And since the county, where the citizen of this county, Kootenai County, county can all the time ask more information from the applicant. It does not stop them to ask more detailed information. So, I just want to be sure that everybody do their jobs here, and it's not our job to fix people's things. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Another reminder, please direct your testimony to me and not to anybody else.
Actually, I don't know how to respond in this thing. It was to you, I was just referring to their thing. So, sorry about it if it was, but.
That's okay, just, we don't want to pin our vision on the applicant. Van Hargraves, opposed, wishes to speak.
Hi, I'm Van Hargraves. I live at 820 North Centennial. I'm a retired emergency room physician, was board certified, and I was previously head of rescue and pre-hospital care for Humboldt County in Northern California and Bernalillo County in New Mexico. I presented 3 papers at the first meeting. The important paper was by the University of Oklahoma, and it dealt with all of the national strikes of lightning in the high strike areas. And I presented that to AT&T specifically so they could have their environmental people comment on it. This showed that 99.8% of high strike areas were within 1.25 miles of cell phone towers nationwide. So there's a massive risk for cell towers of this height. If you noticed, the fire and rescue people excluded lightning strikes from their tacit approval of this, which was left out in the earlier comments, but it was put in the most recent. AT&T only had 2 things to say about this. One was they put a lightning rod up. The article I gave to the committee refuted that as being in any way beneficial for preventing lightning strikes. All that does is protect the electronic equipment by grounding the lightning strike. It has nothing to do with community safety. The other thing they mentioned in there was that the fire department had declined to make a comment about lightning strikes. This is a real easy decision to make. This is one of the few communities of houses that's at the end of a dead-end road, sitting on the side of a dry hill, in the highest risk state in the United States for fires, and the home of the Great Burn, the largest fire in American history, which occurred in our backyard in 1910. This is gross negligence doing this, and it's criminal that AT&T is not dealing with what I have said for the last 2 meetings. If you approve this, I will write up the whole thing and send it as a letter to the editor. This is obscene. Thanks.
I have a question I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
Since you seem to be our most knowledgeable person on lightning strikes. I read all that information, and assuming that we can agree that towers attract more lightning strikes, yes? If those towers are properly grounded and protected, versus no tower and lightning is hitting porous trees, what's the difference? Yeah.
Well, you're focusing the lightning on the area of the cell tower, whereas.
But if it's properly protected, isn't that good?
Well, no, that's exactly what one of the articles they referred to in this said, which is those are meant to ground the lightning. Okay, it still attracts it.
Yeah.
And you can watch videos of cell towers getting struck by lightning. Anybody who's been in an airplane that's been struck by lightning has seen the ball of fire that goes down the middle of the walkway. Okay. Lightning, and every airplane has a lightning rod on it. All they do is focus the fire, and they're meant to protect the equipment. The reason they put a lightning rod on an airplane is so it doesn't fry the electronics and make it unflyable. Okay, it still is hit, and it still attracts. And as that article said, this was within 2 kilometers of the cell towers that it caused these increases. So just having the cell tower there doesn't mean that it's going to hit the cell tower. It increases the whole area around the cell tower.
Okay, thank you. Elton John Bain and Vicky Bain opposed and wish to speak.
Well, Vicky doesn't have a mustache, so I guess I'm the guy. My name is a curse bestowed by my parents. My address is 3706 East Sky Harbor. I am also the Vice President, Board of Directors of Armstrong Park Association, which is the largest homeowner association on the Hill. I personally have been working for the last year and a half on an access road out of Sky Harbor, okay? It's not possible. We have worked with the county fire department, the city fire department, tried to contact the city attorney's office and the county attorney's office. I can tell you, having spent innumerable hours on this, because of the various ownership interests and trying to get old right-of-ways reestablished, it's proved impossible. Basically, having been a resident of Tahoe and having had a landlocked house that I lived in that was almost fried, 60 feet the flames came to. So I will tell you that one of my biggest fears, and all of my neighbors' biggest fears, is being fried and having no access out. I've talked to a lot of the fire people who come up, who do Firewise. We do all those programs up there. We remove dry brush with everything we can. Everybody's still scared to death. And anything that increases the likelihood of fire, including lightning strikes, we really, really wish to avoid at the highest standards that we could. The other thing is, the fire department has basically told us, trying to go down that road, one tree blocks it, somebody runs off the road, an axle breaks, you're going to have Paradise, California repeated. And there's simply just no way out from that hill. And as everybody knows, the fire is going to go up that hill. It's not going to go down to the lake, because the prevailing winds will drive that fire right up there. Anyway, that's just a personal observation of somebody who's tried to work for a year and a half on getting a fire road established, and it's just, I got told in the last month and a half to give it up because it wasn't going to happen. So, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Tom Torgerson, opposed, wishes to speak.
Tom Torgerson, 4808 East Fernand Hill Road, and I hope that I get as glowing a staff report on my next project. A couple things, and I don't want to repeat myself, but first of all, again, there are no photos from the lake. That tower is going to look like a turd in a punch bowl from anywhere on the lake. It is not. And the reason why they want to build a lattice work tower is because they're the cheapest towers to build. If you look at the one by Michael D's restaurant and then the one at the end of Beauty Bay, they both look like big pine trees. So I don't buy the see through it kind of aspect. It's because it's cheap to build. And so that's a huge issue of mine. Also, in addition, those monopole and omnidirectional antennas, that power can be focused, their frequency can be focused in any direction. And I'm fairly confident that they're not shooting up and down the east and west. They're shooting to the south. And if that's where they want to shoot to get to the south, where I think we all know what I'm talking about, then that tower should go on the other side of the lake. And that's my strong feeling, but between the ungodly errors of it, not to mention all the different things that other folks have stated, the fact of the matter is we do everything to try to keep this place as beautiful as possible, and then to stick up this erector set garbage pile is just absolutely unacceptable to me. I was born and raised downtown. I grew up here on this lake, and I live on Fernand Lake, and it just, if they're going to have to locate it there, and if that's where you choose, then it better be a monopole and it better look like a tree. And in addition, we need to remember that this is a conditional use permit. They have no right to this tower, period. And every time I've worked on a CUP, the public drove the voice and they drove the answer, because that's how it works. It's not about what the government wants. It's a conditional use permit that needs to be satisfied by the people who are impacted by it. And that's all I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Virginia Tate, opposed, wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. My name is Virginia Tate, and I live at 4176 East Potlatch Hill Road. This particular CUP is adjacent to two of my lots on the hill. I have provided some lovely pictures showing the view from Tubbs Hill of what this tower is going to look like. The view from my house and my event center of what this is going to look like. There is no way I am going to miss this. This is the base of the tower. There's no way they can turn a truck there. And I thoughtfully provided some AT&T towers that actually have their colored masking stuff, and you can clearly see those. So I'd like to enter those into the record so that you can see this obscure does not mean eliminate.
That'll be AG 2003.
Thank you.
I will follow that with a news article from last month. Teen cited after being rescued from cell tower. Teen was drinking and had to be rescued from a cell tower. Immediately followed by the next article of teen videoing himself for TikTok, falls to his death and videos the whole thing. And then farther in southern Idaho, there was an actual assault on a cell tower with guns because teens were bored, so they decided to shoot things up. I guess they have nothing else to do. And, you know, I really remember back in the day when I was a teen in Coeur d'Alene, and we would go do keggers on the Rutledge Sawmill and light bonfires. So I can't exactly expect anyone to do anything different. You've tried to say that there are, or at least, you know, has been addressed that there's just not a safety issue. That is not true. If you'd have done your due diligence, you'd notice that also adjacent to my R1 property on the north side of this project, there is the Fernand Trail, and that has to be managed by the city of Coeur d'Alene. They are there at least 3 times a day. There are drug deals, there's vandalism, there's fires, and there's trespassing. This is an absentee landowner. I don't care whether it's Mr. Engel, I don't care whether it's AT&T. These kids are gonna go up there, they're gonna party, and then they are gonna trespass on me, and they are going to light fires. Whether it's lightning, whether it's a kegger, it's going to happen. The construction of this is gonna impact our water wells and our reservoirs, our septic and our drain fields. They will ruin our views, vistas, and damage our wildlife. This wildfire and vandalism threat is real, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Virginia. Joel Bowlby, opposed, wishes to speak.
Thanks, Joan. Joel Bowlby. I'm at 940 North Armstrong Drive here in Coeur d'Alene. I'm not going to add too much, but I just want to point out how many people live up on that hill. I counted it today, I drove up the hill, there's over 100 homes in Armstrong Park and Falcon Ridge. I'm not including the folks who live on Potlatch, like Jeannie, who you just heard, so there's more than this. If there's 2.66 people per home, which is the Idaho average, that's 266 people that are being impacted directly who live above this. So if we go like Paradise, you're gonna have 266 dead people, potentially. All it takes, like Elton said, there's one way down. And you get 266 people, potentially over 100 cars, trying to exit all at the same time in a 5-minute scale to get down the road. I don't understand how it's gonna work. I understand there's potential for fire at all times, but to me it makes sense if you put a big piece of metal up into the air, it's gonna attract lightning. There was just a strike on the Beauty Bay cell phone tower that created a fire that was responded to by the East Side Fire District. It occurred, I want to say, at some point in August. It was hard to say and hard to prove if that was specifically created from it. It occurred just right down the way from it, and it was reported by a resident. Luckily, we had rain that night, and it didn't catch that whole area on fire. And it's kind of a little tricky to prove, but the point is there was a fire that was created near that tower. So just something to think about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Alyssa DeSanic, opposed, wishes to speak.
Hi again. I'm Alyssa DeSansic. I live at 965 North Armstrong Drive. I had written this whole thing to say, and a few of these points have been already mentioned, and so I'll skip those, but I did write down something as I've been listening to all of this. The way that this meeting was started was we were asked to speak respectfully, and I think people have, and I agree with that, of course. What I'd like to say with regard to that, though, is that so far I don't feel like we've been respected as a community, because what we're doing is we're trying to protect our families. And the information that keeps coming from the applicant is, I know that they don't have any liability, but it's still very important to us to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to protect our children. The few things that I did want to mention that I did not mention last time, one of those is the AT&T 5G coverage map that's on their own website. It looks like this. Lots of coverage, no gaps in coverage. That's their own website. Number 2 is the propagation maps showing projections. I did submit this prior to this hearing, but what I did was I went in and I covered up the lake, and I covered up the existing coverage in all of the alternative sites that the applicant provided. And these are the 4 different new coverage options that they've given to us. So the 3 alternatives, I wasn't able to include the ones from today because I haven't seen them yet, And then the one coverage that is the tower that they're proposing. The reason that I did this is to show you that if they were to use one of those other towers, it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same coverage by their own maps. So I think that that should be considered. Number 3, this goes back to the fire safety, but I did go through the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue district requirements for access roadways. They have failed pretty dramatically at number 2, number 5, and number 8. We've proven this. We've measured the road. We have done all of the work that they should have done prior to the last hearing. They didn't, and they're not speaking to it. And so the last thing that I want to say is actually a question. Everybody who's approved this has essentially passed the buck on liability. I want to know who is liable. Because if this thing goes up and our families burn, somebody is getting sued. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Lambia, opposed, may wish to speak.
Shauna Lambert, 847 South Bailey Court. So I just wanted to speak to the slide that was up earlier. The statement that was made that 5G has no harmful effects is misleading at best. There have not been any studies done since 1996. So if we are going to talk about being respectful, I would very much appreciate it if we were given accurate information, not misleading information to you or to us. I'm aware that you cannot deny this based off of health concerns, but you can require studies to be done. Speaking to the fire issue, where we would have anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to evacuate the hill in the event of a fire, it's almost a guarantee that nobody's getting off the hill and that everyone's going to be trapped. The applicant does not live in this community. He's not the one that's going to be impacted by this. He's not going to have to evacuate. It's us. We're told that there's no reason to deny this permit, but as Alyssa said, per AT&T's own coverage map, there's no significant gaps in coverage. This is putting a huge burden on our community with a wide range of very real risks and to address a non-issue. The only benefit of this tower belongs to Mr. Engel, AT&T, and Starlink, and the various other companies that will end up putting antenna on the tower. The people that are supposed to be benefiting from this tower are in this room saying that they don't want this. They're saying they don't want this. So please, I feel like Alyssa's reading my mind, please don't recommend the approval of this and pass the buck to somebody else expecting it to get denied at some other point in the process. You have the ability to require studies be done before making any decisions on this that will impact the community. Thank you.
Thanks. Wayne Longo, opposed, wishes to speak.
Wayne M. Longo, 4599 Potlatch Road in Coeur d'Alene. Last meeting, I spoke to the fire danger. I'm not going to go into that. It's been very well spoken again, but I would like to address a couple of the comments that were made by Kootenai Fire, and Vlad referenced it in his opening argument that Potlatch Hill Road is a fire danger basically waiting to happen. It's a fire mess. So doesn't that mean that we should not put another fire hazard that's going to attract lightning, whether that's a minuscule risk or a huge risk, when we already know the reference to Paradise, God help those people, and what's going on in California and other states, and our own state is burning up like crazy. As a 40-plus year veteran, as a police officer, I have a problem with Kootenai Fire making that statement and not, for instance, offering up at least a suggestion that AT&T run water, the city water, along Potlatch Hill Road, the gravel portion, it's less than half a mile, and put in the necessary hydrants to at least mitigate some of that. That's not going to help those of us that live there and want to get off the hill. It's not going to happen. We are going to die there. And so I just think that if this were to be approved, there needs to be some conditions set to dramatically at least assist putting out the fire after we all are gone. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you. Todd? Men? Doesn't say whether you're in favor, opposed, or neutral.
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Todd Meunier, 3110 East Fernand Hill Road. I
apologize for being a little all over the place. I should have a paper and pen and do a little bit better job. But I was listening to everybody and this. They spend a lot of time on the visual part. They're like, oh, we took a picture here and took a picture there. I think, what I understand, people are talking about fire. Yeah, so anyways, I think they spend a lot of time on that for no reason. And one of the subjects, and so fire aside, can we have an environmental impact report? Because we do have some beautiful bald eagles flying around.
Yes.
And has anybody even talked about that or looked about that? And not to mention bald eagles, but they're number one. But there's other birds. Is there an environmental impact report on that? And if you guys, for some reason, decide to say we will allow this tower, can that be a condition of the use? Because if I stop seeing the bald eagles flying around, I'm going to be very mad because I like seeing them out my window. Let's see, and it's now FirstNet. That is first responders. Well, now we have satellite phones. They're becoming more and more popular. I mean, Elon Musk with Starlink, they just signed a contract with T-Mobile. So we're going to have satellite phones very readily available in the near future. So this 25-year contract that AT&T has for first responders, this tower is already obsolete for that. So that doesn't, I mean, you can go get a satellite phone tomorrow. What else? The additional grounding, they talked about that. That's just for that is still a track, so we don't need to touch on that. So, and I spoke to someone else. I'd like to request a full disclosure if AT&T has made any offers whatsoever to the county or its representatives. So that would be nice to know if AT&T has promised anything or has said anything or done anything for the county or something like that, because sometimes that happens. Anyways, so that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks. Shelley? Something C. Opposed may wish to speak? Shelley Cabal? Kroll.
Shelley Kroll.
Oh, okay.
I'm formerly a resident of Armstrong Park, now in Post Falls. I guess I don't want to reiterate what everybody has said, but I am opposed for all of those reasons.
Okay, thank you. Marcus Johnson, opposed, wishes to speak.
Thank you, Examiner Woodard. My name is Marcus Johnson. I'm a local land use attorney, but more importantly, I reside at 952 Rutledge Court. You've heard a lot of opposition to this project. You will hear more opposition to this project. I think recently there has grown this overwhelming amount of opposition that we receive for most projects. But we can't lose sight of the fact that these concerns that we are hearing are valid concerns. Most of them you cannot consider. We are bound by the code. We are bound by the local land use code when you are making your ultimate recommendation on this. But they are legitimate concerns. And with that said, I am mindful of your role today. And your role today is to evaluate whether the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the local land use code. And that is the applicant's burden. That is none of the opponent's burden. That is the applicant's burden to demonstrate that compliance. The applicant has failed to meet that. And I submitted a letter of opposition that I assume you have read. If you've not, I urge you to do so before you send your written recommendation. The Kootenai County Code requires, of course, engineered data of all collocation within the 2-mile radius. And the justification that was submitted by the applicant does show the collocation options, but what they do not demonstrate is any commingled use of the collocation. What I mean by that is there is absolutely no demonstration that existing site 8 and 9 could be improved in order to fix this coverage gap. And I think that's particularly important because the one antenna that is within the 2-mile radius is one that AT&T already owns. And I think that's particularly important because it seems to me to just be a continuation of a process where they're having to just kind of piggyback throughout the location and continuing to put up towers. And I do not think that they have met their burden because what they're required to demonstrate is that this coverage gap is impractical to remedy by other means. And I think that that is required to show that a combination of these other existing sites cannot meet that impracticality. And what they do is they instantly jump to the conclusion to build a 150-foot tower. And I think this is not a circumstance where we have to have a view easement in order to be taken seriously in order to remediate these view obstruction concerns. And this is particularly concerning in light of the fact that if this is approved, the applicant has a right to extend this an additional 20 feet. So this is no longer a 150-foot tower, this is now a 170-foot tower. And all of these pictures that were provided are, at that point, thrown out the window. There is absolutely no demonstration to show that the applicant actually met the burden to comply with the standards, including the picture that was taken from my front door.
Thank you, Marcus. Heidi Bohm, opposed, does not wish to speak. Sue Kuhn, doesn't say whether you're opposed, neutral, or in favor.
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. I do share the same aforementioned concerns and wish to add the following. Oh, I'm sorry. Sue Cooney at 2914 East Fernand Hill Road. What I do not hear, I do not hear the following being addressed, and here are my main concerns. We live here to enjoy the character of Kootenai County, and I'm wondering how does this proposal support this character? I'd like to read from the Kootenai County Land Use and Development Code. Give me just a second to bring that up. In this code, this is in an area, it's 8.6.708. It's not directly related to this subject, but it is in the code, so I believe that it's important. So in reading this, it says, mountain and water views and vistas are an important part of the character of Kootenai County, contributing to the visual quality of the area, increasing property values, attracting visitors, and enhancing the desirability and livability of the community. As such, it is in the public interest that land be developed, and I believe that to me, this seems like a development, in a manner that is visually unobtrusive, again, unobtrusive, environmentally responsible, and is compatible with the character of the area. I don't believe that this in any way, shape, or form meets that standard. I just have a couple more points that I wanted to bring up. I have a few questions. Is this a need or a want by AT&T? Why not expand on existing towers? I believe that was already brought up. I didn't hear that this was satisfactorily assessed. Who wants AT&T when Verizon already provides excellent service? I've enjoyed that all the time I've been here. Cell towers do not belong in the middle of residential communities. That's my opinion. I hear that this service is being offered, not requested, by EMS departments. I think that's important to point out. And I didn't hear that AT&T stated that they have considered modifying this overburdened site to make it capable of handling more service, as the existing structure, thus not requiring the cell tower. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Okay, and that's all the sheets I have from the room. So do we have people on Zoom?
We do. What I could do is I could just go through the list here and ask if they'd like to speak. And if you do, go ahead and unmute yourself. First, we would have Brent Lyles.
Yes, I wish to speak. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Brent Lyles, 4176 East Potlatch Hill Road. We've lightly hit the vandalism piece. Ms. Tate did a great job with that. The site is really close to the city. The Fernand trailhead is already there. The city police are already having problems over there. Our sheriff's department is underfunded and understaffed. You know, we don't need a party at the Moon Tower, all that good stuff. The landowner is absentee. AT&T is saying only one truck is going to be up there a month, so nobody's going to be watching that site. The difference between that and what we do at Elk Point, we have signage. The signage goes down at the end of the night. We have a gate. The gate closes. We are there on site. Nobody's there after hours. We're able to watch that. With this location, there is nobody there to watch that. Gerald Archer says that the terrain is not changing. Well, that's because it's a hill. The hill is not going to change. There is still going to be development on that site, whether we like it or not. Whether it be houses, whether it be as I make a joke to my friend Bill Reagan at the Coeur d'Alene Resort all the time, a 25-story hotel, which could be built on that site. And since basically what Vlad has explained to me is it's kind of a free-for-all with building now, we could build a 25-story hotel that would render this tower completely useless. So maybe that's an option to keep this project from going through. Vlad also said that ownership was not provided to him on Mr. Engel's parcel. That's not true. Ms. Tate did provide that to him, so that's absolutely incorrect. Again, this project is heavily opposed. Please take that as a hint. They said they have other sites. They really need to go explore those other sites. Of course, Potlatch Hill is a great location. It's right in town. It's right near everyone. That doesn't mean it's the right place to put this thing. Please, Kootenai County Community Development Department, fulfill your stewardship to the residents of this city, this county, reject this, or just resign and go somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a username of Ed Chris Buckler.
Yes, this is Ed Buckler. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead and state your address as well.
Ed Buckler, 3595 Sky Harbor Drive in Armstrong Park. And I have two quick comments. One relates to the current literature regarding cell phone towers and cell phone companies. If you look at the literature that's available and not written by cell phone companies, the common opinion is that cell phone towers will become obsolete within 4 to 10 years, and they will be replaced with an array of low-altitude orbiting satellites. So if this is the future for cell phone towers, why build it? And the cell phone tower companies know this. They're all going to become obsolete within the relatively near future, and we're going to be using satellite communication-based equipment. So that also begs the question that if they put up the tower, let's say nominally 5 years from now they don't need the tower anymore, are they going to come in and remove it for us? That would be the kind thing to do. The second comment that I have was alluded to a few minutes ago. I believe that there is a second site that's under consideration. And I think that probably the main reason that it's not being actively pursued is that it's more expensive to build there than the site on Potlatch Hill Road. I really would like to know where this second site is and what it's going to take to encourage them to build there and not on Potlatch Hill Road. So that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jean and Gabby. Jean, if you wish to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have Mike Fisher. Mike, if you wish to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself. Hearing that either. Moving on again, we have Shelley's iPhone. I believe Shelley may have spoken already before, so I don't know if she had any comment in addition to what she's provided already.
Already spoken, thank you.
And then lastly, I have Thomas Engel. If you wish to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself. Anybody else that I may have missed, if you would like to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and do so. I think we're good on Zoom.
Okay, that concludes the public testimony for this evening. Now we'll hear. What was that?
Sorry?
Yes.
I was contributing.
Yes, Mr. Engel, why don't you go ahead and...
Yeah. So I've seen the opposition, and that's fine. It seems to me that most of it is not in my backyard stuff. If you really look at the geography of the area, basically, there's not a better place to find a cell tower. The three houses that are in front of, and I mean in front of by towards the lake, nobody's view is impacted. Nobody is really impacted beyond the piece that sits above the tree line, which is nobody in Armstrong Park, nobody on Potlatch Hill Road. So, as much as I get, you don't want a cell phone tower in your backyard. What are you really complaining about? Because it's not going to impact your view. There is nobody that is going to be impacted by building this tower for the view of the lake.
That was impressive.
Anything more?
All right, that's my statement from me. Maybe AT&T has something else to say, or maybe not.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public testimony for this evening. Now we'll hear from the applicant with their rebuttal.
Thank you, Examiner Woodard. I do have some rebuttal here. I want to speak to the lack of turnaround that's on Potlatch Hill Road now. AT&T will be developing a turnaround on the property that will allow trucks to turn around. So it will be in addition to the neighborhood of a place that you can turn a truck around. So that is part of the site plan that's being contemplated. With respect to the concerns about Mr. Dinger had concerns about the suitability of Potlatch Hill Road as And basically, as we discussed at the beginning, we have to get zoning approval, and then AT&T will seek building permit approval, and have to meet all the safety requirements of the county, and build to the county standards. And so if we don't meet the county standards, we won't be able to build. We won't get a permit to be able to build the tower. And that is the portion of the review process where the county has said, this is when these things are due. So, as I said, AT&T is already developing all of the products that need to go in with the building permit application. And we'll certainly do that. And we'll build to whatever conditions the county imposes on AT&T during the building permit process. I think we heard from a concern about tower vandalism and homeless encampments on the subject property, the larger parcel. AT&T typically fences its compound and removes, if there's some indication that there's going to be some sort of teenage interest in the tower, removes the lower pegs that allow climbability of the tower itself. The tower can have barbed wire at the top of the fencing that encloses the lease area. And certainly those conditions, lighting, if that's something that, security lighting, we would need to get permission from the landlord, of course. But those are things that, certainly could be considered as conditions to alleviate the concerns that we've heard here tonight about vandalism and kids partying on the site. Let's see. With respect to, and I didn't get his last name, Reed, who testified, who lives on Majestic, he was concerned about the grounding plan and the lightning strikes. And we will build to the standards that the county sets for us. And that review will include the county fire department another time during the building permit process as well. So whatever they require to make the site meet the code, AT&T will comply with that. I also heard a concern that there might be multiple towers on this site. You build one and others will come. There is a county code provision that only allows one tower per parcel. So multiple towers are not permitted under the current county code. In terms of the, I know that one of the opponents held up a snapshot of the AT&T online coverage map. We did provide as an exhibit today the disclaimer that goes with that map, and the disclaimer basically says that that the maps are not generated to be able to ascertain coverage on any particular site. They're a very high level and that show where AT&T, wants to deploy coverage, where it plans to deploy coverage, but that actual computer-generated propagation maps, such as were submitted with the application today, are the tools that you need to ascertain what coverage is going to be generated or is missing at any particular location. So there is a California case that addresses that. There was a challenge to an application because the coverage maps appeared to show, no need for coverage anywhere, and the court did discuss that there is a disclaimer there is a difference, and that there had been no demonstration that the online map was more reliable than the computer-generated model maps that were submitted with the application. I'm happy to provide that citation as well. And I think we had the gentleman who was talking about the drawings, that the drawings that were submitted were 11% drawings. Typically, zoning drawings are very preliminary. They're not the full finished design. He indicated there was no finished floor shown on the drawing, so he couldn't determine the height. The measurements that we submit with the application are at ground level to the top of the the tower, those are the measurements that are taken. And certainly 100% construction drawings are being drafted right now that will go in with the building permit process. And during the building permit process, staff also reviews to make sure that it complies with the zoning, what was proposed in the zoning approval as well. So those two things have to match up. And so that's, I know I repeat this, but it is will be addressed in a later portion of the process that involves building a site like this. In terms of lightning strikes, we are putting the industry standard facility in. If the fire department were to require something more, we would certainly, as a condition of approval during building permit or here, be addressing that. But they haven't, and but we are going to include the lightning rod and the grounding system to keep the facility and the neighborhood safe as well, because we believe that will happen. In terms of the design of the tower, the lattice tower, it's the cheapest one to build. You know, it was selected because it seemed most appropriate for the location and to also deal with the environmental conditions. A monopole is solid, and the antennas tend to be more visible because they're in antenna arrays that are more visible and more solid. But certainly, if a monopole were required, AT&T would consider that as well instead of a lattice tower design. If there was a consensus that would mitigate visual impacts, painted green or whatever color to match, the treescape around it. And addressing the further concerns, I believe Ms. Tate discussed her concerns about vandalism and the adjacent trail bringing vandalism. AT&T will do everything it can to secure the site, and certainly is open to the county imposing conditions around that to secure the site to the best of its ability. One of the folks who testified wanted full disclosure of any promises made to the county by AT&T. The answer to that is none. Nothing has been promised to the county in exchange for this site. We filed an application and paid our application fee and have been working our way through the process just like any other applicant. There was some discussion about a second site that one of the, I think even Mr. Buckland testified to. I have no idea of a alternative site that has not been put before this body. I think we covered all of them that were, even in the range of possibility, and they were ruled out for the reasons stated in the materials that have been submitted with the application and with the testimony today and at the last hearing. So also, I did want to reiterate that AT&T, in terms of the road approach that's being designed, is designing it so there will be no need to physically impact any of the adjacent properties with ingress or egress coming and going, or the development of the road approach. That's what we've been told by our engineers to date. They're designing that now. And I think finally, this is a quasi-judicial land use approval hearing, and as such, we have AT&T has vested under the code that was in effect when the application was filed, we have went forward with the application process to demonstrate that we meet the existing code. What I've been hearing in a lot of the public comment is that there's dissatisfaction with the existing code. Perhaps it's not stringent enough. Perhaps it should require other things of applicants. And I just wanted to emphasize that there is a legislative process for code review and code revision in every municipality if the citizens of that municipality feel that there need to be changes made to the code. But a land use approval process with an application that was filed under an existing code is not a place where the code can morph and change to become more stringent for this particular applicant, because they vest to the code that they are under when they file their application and file a complete application. So just as a statement that there is a remedy, it's just not here in terms of the standards not being stringent enough for Kootenai County. We will comply with all the standards that are applicable, and would request that you recommend approval of this application. And with that, I have 2 minutes. Deborah or Randy, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to go ahead, Randy.
Oh, okay.
You're probably more. Go ahead.
So I just want everybody to understand, in the build process, there's technically one piece of equipment that's going to be larger than normally goes up that hill, and that's going to be used to stack our tower. It's going to be a 6-wheel crane that is designed to virtually go anywhere and pretty much has a very, very tight turn radius. All the other equipment that we use to build this tower is what they've used to build their homes with. Concrete trucks, excavators, dump trucks. They've all been up the hill already. And that's basically the comment I wanted to make, Kim.
Thank you. And with that, we'll stand for any questions.
So Randy, will that new driveway access enable you to turn without a 3-point requirement?
So the tower itself comes together on a large trailer. It is in pieces, and we put it together on site. We have multiple ways of getting these towers to the site if we have access issues. This particular road design, since it isn't completely done today, we don't have an approved road design. I can't say that it won't be a 3-point turn, but it will certainly be accessible with any of the equipment that we're taking into the site. Most importantly, it'll meet your fire marshal requirements for turns with with your larger fire trucks.
Are you going to be blasting footings?
No, we will not be doing that.
How are you going to do that?
If we do run into a situation, we don't have a geo on the site, so I'm just speaking in respect to the sites that we've built in the past. When we run into rock, we use what is called a hammer that is on the excavator that chips the ballast or the granite out, and that's a pretty common practice for us. And in regards to the vandalism comments, too, I guess I could add a little more. The lower portion of the gate where the access road is existing that services the homes, and then where our transition is going up to the site, a lot of times, actually most of the times because of vandalism, so folks can't drive vehicles in there, we always put gates that are always locked. The landowner would have the combo. Fire department would have the combo to that gate. Our ops technicians that go there occasionally would have the combo to that gate. So nobody would be driving a vehicle up that road that is not supposed to be there. Once we install the site, we will have an approved design that goes through your building department that
wraps our tower, and that gate is also locked with a combo that only the ops tech knows or the folks that are working on the tower at the time. And the shelter that we install has a sensor light, so when somebody comes to the property, the light does go on. So we have issues with vandalism, and within the AT&T national standards, we're trying to address those issues and make sure that we minimize that from happening.
And I need to state that I've lived on the road for 16 years, and I had multiple pieces of
I'm afraid you provided your public testimony already. So unless AT&T is asking you to respond in their rebuttal, which they are not, I can't take any more input from you, Mr. Engel. Once I start asking questions of the applicant, the timer stops. So I have a question for you. Based on our code.
For me?
No, I'm speaking to Kim. That we're looking for compatibility with existing homes, businesses, and neighborhoods, and the natural characteristics of the area. And you spoke to that in your application with regard to visual, that it's being proposed to be located amongst the existing trees. But you didn't speak to any other compatibility with the homes, the environment, the natural topography, those kinds of things that obviously are very concerning to people. So how would you describe compatibility of this tower?
Well, because this area of municipal law is so heavily regulated by federal law and constrained by federal law, the reviews that are left to the municipalities are aesthetic reviews and safety. Those are the reviews that are there. We are not required under Idaho law or under Kootenai County law to do an environmental impact statement. There's no code requirement for that. Again, this is maybe an aspect of the code where, some evaluation might be in order, but it's not required of the applicants to do. We focus exclusively on visual compatibility and the aesthetics of the view of the tower to try to minimize that. And also the ground equipment to the extent that it can be seen by neighbors, decorative fencing, things like that. But a cell tower is a cell tower. It's not a tree. It's not a house, and it can't be made invisible. It can. We try to mitigate the visual impact to the greatest extent possible, working with the community and staff to figure out what's the best look for this, what's going to cause the least amount of heartburn for the community. But in terms of the more holistic compatibility, at the end of the day, it's still a cell tower, but it also is a very necessary part of infrastructure today.
No, it's
No input from the audience at this point. I am curious, in all my other endeavors in commercial development over the years, a situation like this, I would be remiss if I didn't identify other sites, not just towers, but other pieces of property where a tower could have been constructed that might not perfectly meet your requirements, but would meet the requirements. And that you would then say, but this is the more perfect site for these following reasons. None of that is here.
That's correct. Many jurisdictions require that of applicants, that they do an alternative site analysis that involves raw land sites as well as co-location on existing towers. Kootenai County's code does not require that of the applicant in order to win an approval. It says that you need to demonstrate that you cannot co-locate on existing towers within certain radii. So again, if there's a will to make the code more stringent, certainly other jurisdictions have done that, but that is not a code requirement here under the wireless code. And that's why we did not bring that forth. And I don't know of any other raw land sites that were considered
Or if any were.
I don't know.
Can I add something? This is Debbie Griffin with SmartLink.
Yes.
There was a property to the north that was originally looked at, Miss Virginia Tate's property, that was under consideration by AT&T, and as AT&T's RF engineers looked more closely at the site, they determined that the coverage to the south would not be achieved as great as the proposed property that we are locating on. So we did look at one other raw land property, and that was the parcel that we looked at. Just wanted to add that to the record.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you. This concludes this evening's hearing on CUP 22-0004. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your attendance and for your, following the guidelines. I appreciate it.